We wish to put it here.
It's a lot of info.
Yeah.
Are you just in that concept, like, idea process right now?
Oh, interesting. Let's talk later, because I gotta get going here. I gotta get started. Thank you.
Again, good program, like the temperature, and then you're set.
All right, everybody. Oh, does everybody have one of the folders that I've provided here? Okay, if you don't have it, you need to have one, because we're actually going to do a workshop tonight. It's very different than just coming and sitting and listening. We're going to go through a lot of stuff, and you're going to get a lot of information. The book will also provide you with additional information that I'm not necessarily going to talk about, but you can find it in there. The way I've scheduled, or the way I've kind of planned this this workshop is I've picked a device, and we're going to call it Your Invention. We're going to go through what that device does, how it solves problems, kind of give you an idea of what the prior art looks like, and then we're going to draft a provisional patent application on it, in our minds, not on paper. And I want you to ask me questions as we go through. You can interrupt, it's not a problem, I'm not offended by that. But if you do have a phone and you're expecting calls, please be aware that it does bother others. It's not going to bother me, but you may want to turn it on plane mode or turn it off or whatever. So let's start. This is the San Diego Inventors Forum. Today is June 13th. We are a 501(c) organization designed to help, I like to say garage inventors because really that's what Adrian was, but we're here to help all inventors, not just garage inventors. We're here to motivate, educate, and network inventors to help them become successful entrepreneurs. That's a high bar. A lot of us get to the first and the second one, but the idea here is that we have a lot of individuals from a lot of different areas that allow us to network. And when we get networking and we start understanding where it is we have to be and where it is we have to go, then we can start getting into that successful entrepreneurship. Have you got one of these?
No.
You have to come back, get one. Grab this one. Yeah. So let's start. I'd like to thank AMN Healthcare. They are the individuals which allow us to utilize this room. And if you are a member of any type of 501(c)(3) or nonprofit organization, this is a blessing, okay? Because you can't just get a room like this anywhere. And if you do, it usually costs an arm and a leg. So it's very nice, and I do appreciate that from them. So this is the patent workshop. Like I said, this is not a sit and listen. I'm going to give you a lot of information, but in the end, you're going to start doing some work for me. And I'm going to start asking questions at the end to find out what you came up with. And then we're going to analyze what's good about the information you are providing and what may not be good with the information you're providing, and why. Because the idea here is to get you to understand what is needed in a patent application to be successful. Okay? I do not recommend, and I'm not doing it today or at any time, that you prepare a patent application and file it yourself. It should always go through a patent agent or a patent attorney. Why? Because they know a lot of things that you don't particularly know, and if you file that patent application with some of those things you don't know about, you could seriously hurt yourself, and you don't want to do that. But I had always been concerned about how much those law firms charge you to do the work that they do. Personally, I charge $300 an hour, which, by the way, in the industry is like nothing. Okay, I earned over $475 an hour 10 years ago when I was at Gordon Reese. Okay, I don't believe that that's reasonable, but wealthy people pay it, so that means I guess you guys got to pay it. But I think I got a solution that will help you not have to pay that. Okay. My hope is that when you're done with this workshop, you will be able to provide to either your patent agent or your patent attorney a document that allows them not to spend an enormous amount of time on it, and by doing so, hopefully charge you by the hour instead of by the project. Now, I've told a couple of people this quick, and I'm going to tell you real quick again. Gordon Reese, when I worked there, minimum charge for doing patent application, 30 pages, simple device, $25K. For a boutique firm, when I was working with the Nath Law Group, $15K. If you come to me, $7. That's starting from ab initio. You come, you tell me what it is, I start writing. Today, what I'm going to try and do in this workshop is get you to understand what you need to write it down so that the attorney doesn't have to figure that stuff out. You've provided everything he needs and he just has to rework it. Okay? So, the first thing I want to do is I want to do it quickly because I don't want to do this again. All right? This is the review of the Uspto prosecution rules. There's 3 of them, 4 of them. Rule 101, what's patentable, what's not patentable. 102, what's anticipated. 103, what's obvious. 112, what you didn't write well. Definitions are wrong or whatever. We're going to go through those, but I'm going to go through them quick, and I just want to have them in your mind when you start crafting the patent application on this device so that you know what to say and how to get around the prior art based on the 102s, 103s, 112s. 101s, forget it. It's patentable. We're not going to get there. So, the application preparation. In your handout, I gave you excerpts from MPEP 608. What is MPEP 608? It is the Patent Office telling you all the specifics that you need to have in your patent application when you file it. That means, what are the title headings? What is the spacing between the lines? What type of type can you use? What font size you have? What the figures have to look like? Whether you can use color or not color? What are the left margins, right margins, bottom margins, and top margins? If you do not meet this criteria, they're going to ask you to spend some more money and send them an appropriate application in that proper form. And you don't need to spend that extra money, but some examiners get picky. Okay, I've had them get picky on me before, other times they're not. So, the next thing we're going to talk about, and it's in there, are the document requirements. The next thing, the application sections and the order. And then we're going to talk about section requirements. And what I have done for this workshop is I picked a device that we are going to craft the provisional patent application on. Okay? It's a very, very simple device. I did this early in my career. It got the 2004 Connect Award for Most Innovative Device. All right? And my client was brilliant. He has been brilliant. He passed away just a couple months ago, which is a shame. But I picked this device so that we can use it to work through preparing a provisional application. Your device may be similar, it may not be, but it will be basically the same in each case. So, let's go through patentability. 101, what subject matter is patentable, what subject matter is not. Written description, whether you've described it properly, whether as your own lexicographer you have said something like green is a color of a mixture between yellow and blue, or green is red. If you said it's a mixture of yellow and blue, you're good. If you said it's red, you're in big trouble. While you can be your own lexicographer, in a patent application, you cannot state that a certain term is different from what it's known in the art to be. You can qualify it, but you cannot say it's something different than what it is. Novelty, whether or not it's anticipated. In other words, is there prior art out there that's exactly your device? That's an anticipatory rejection. Non-obviousness, that's where the examiner takes like a couple pieces, a couple of patent applications, grabs pieces from it, kind of sticks it together and says, well, if I grab these pieces and I go like this, I get your thing. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. They make reasonable arguments. I don't always find them to be terrific, but that's the way it goes.
David, on the lexicon issues, what about the R and the RN? Can you say it at the beginning? Or in this patent meaning and or and?
Yes.
All of those combinations.
Yes, I would say that you would probably do that in the detailed description. First section I always provide in the detailed description, which not everybody does, but I always do a definition section. I guess along that line I should clarify. Every patent attorney can write a patent application and all of them can be successful for the same device but they will all write them differently. So there's no one exact way of doing it. The information that I'm going to give you today should pretty much cover everything you can put into an application to be successful, but not all of us write the same. So just so you know. Non-patentable subject matter, laws of nature, natural phenomena, products of nature, algorithms, things that already exist are known to be part of our world and our environment and our physical being in this universe are not patentable. Okay? So when you say you have a perpetual motion machine, yeah, I'd like to see that. Okay. 102. Anticipatory has to be the exact same invention. Exactly the same. Okay? If you get a 102 rejection in your patent application from a patent examiner, likely he's wrong or she's wrong. I have only seen one 102 rejection in my 27 years or 28 years that was actually on point. And usually when that happens, it means your client is lying to you. And then in the case of my situation, he actually wasn't, but I still don't believe him. All right, next. Obviousness. This is where the examiner says, well, I can't find exactly your device in a single patent, but if I take Smith and I take Jones and I kind of put the claims together kind of this way, I think I have your invention. It's all about the arguments you present. It's all about whether it's possible. You, as the expert in the field, will know it, and you can help that argument with your patent agent or patent attorney craft it so that you can get an allowance. Again, these are just things I want you to think about. This is not what this is about. Written description. When you write something in your patent application and it's a critical element, make it clear. Take some time. Don't just say, oh, it's A. You know, well, it's A, but A does this. A can be this size. A works in this way. It operates so and so. Be descriptive. Don't leave me hanging when I get your patent after it wasn't successful in the patent office and I'm left with pretty much nothing to kind of fumble in my hands and try and get an argument. So, enablement basically says make sure that your description, the written description, is sufficient and enables one skilled in the art to make and use the invention. If you haven't done that, you don't have a patent. Remember, the key element behind a patent. Government says you can have a monopoly. Well, monopolies are not permitted, but the government says you can have one. Why? Because in exchange, after 20 years, you're giving it to the public. So now it's okay. But if you don't adequately describe it, you don't teach somebody who reads it how to make it, no deal. No agreement. So no patent. Okay? All right, so again, I'm going to say this one last time. I don't recommend that you ever prepare and file a patent application on your own. Always have a patent agent or a patent attorney look at it. I can look at it beforehand and you can be successful, or I can look at it after you filed it and you're not going to be pleased. Okay? Better to have me look at it beforehand than after. And it doesn't have to be me, it could be anybody. Anybody's skilled.
Are you talking about both the provisional and non-provisional?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Let's clear up the provisional, non-provisional thing. What is the difference between a provisional and non-provisional? With respect to subject matter in the patent? Nothing. Nothing, okay? You have to teach how to make and use. If you think you're filing a provisional, you don't have to teach how to make and use, you can just make it a 3-page application, forget it. It's not going to happen, okay? Patent application, you have to teach how to make and use. I've seen 100 provisionals, they come to me and say, I want to convert this, and what do I do? And I read it and I go, convert it for what? Well, I need the priority date. Well, you don't have one because you didn't teach me how to make and use. All you did was tell me how good your product was and how wonderful it's going to sell. Remember, the contract is you teach how to make and use, I give you a patent. No teaching, no telling me how to use it, no patent. Okay? So, again, there are strategies for filing provisionals and when to file them. There are strategies for filing regulars and not provisionals. All that is not part of this. But if you have questions about that, please come and ask, and I can just lay it out for you. Okay? So we're going to talk about document requirements, application sections and orders, and section requirements. But let me do that right now. Okay, so document requirements. Language, English, okay? If you're writing in a different language, they're not going to accept it. English is the only one. Though the MPEP 608 is going to give you all of this. It's going to give you margins, paper type, font, line spacing, columns, paragraph, and line numbering. Now, just so you know, a lot of people go, oh, I don't need to do this. You know, this is a pain, and I can't figure out where it is on my computer anyway, so what the heck. Yeah, but when you start arguing with the examiner, it's so much easier to say paragraph 0015. You know, instead of saying page number 29, line number 16, word number, you know, it just gets complicated. But if you have paragraph and line number, it makes it a lot easier. So that's that. Okay, so what are the application sections? We have a title, we have background. Background actually has 2 seconds to it, but I didn't put it up here right now. We're going to talk about it later. Summary of the invention, description of the drawings if you have any. Okay. Detailed description. This is what we're going to focus on tonight. This is going to be your work. This one. All this other stuff, not so much. Claims. Don't need claims in a provisional, but having claim number 1, which is your broadest scoped claim, helps you craft your patent application and make sure you have everything in there that you need. Okay? Abstract. It's, we'll get into it, but it's like a 500 word one-sheeter that just basically describes claim 1. It's not a big deal. It's not something to hang my hat on right now, not in a provisional application. So, let's talk about the device. Everybody knows what a ring buoy is, right? Everybody been saved? It's that round flotation thing that the lifeguards always run and throw in the water, and it's round and sometimes has gripping on the sides, whatever. Have you ever tried to throw one? I have. I'm lucky if I can get maybe 15, 20 feet. You know, 20 feet or bigger. It's hard to throw. Oh, and by the way, you don't want to hit somebody with it, okay? Because it weighs a ton. Okay, if you hit them in the head, you might knock them out. They might go face down in the water, and you got another problem. Okay, so those are that particular device, the ring buoy, has been utilized in the Navy and other marine areas for, well, since the 1800s, where they used to be cork. They found out that cork actually absorbs water, becomes a problem, okay, because then it doesn't float anymore. So if you're in the water for 24 hours and you got a cork one, you're probably in trouble. So what else do they use now too? Well, you throw a ring buoy, but you know you got to hang on it. Then the boat's got to stop, it's got to turn around, it's got to pick you up. But we can't really get you. We have to kind of pull the boat up alongside you. If you have a large boat, that's a problem. Okay, try and maneuver a big boat against a little guy in the water without hitting anything. So what they've done also now is they've got this ball, hard ball, with a string on it. And they chuck it out there, and the string goes out there, you grab onto it, they pull you in, you're safe, right? Yeah, except that there's no flotation element there. So if you're sinking, you're just going to sink while they're pulling you in. Okay, so you got a problem. So these are things that this device was attempting to resolve. Okay, so this is the personal retriever. It is a real device. It is out there. It has been utilized by the United States Coast Guard, even though it will not be approved by the United States Coast Guard. Okay, I don't know how to answer that question. So we've been fighting with the United States Coast Guard for over 10 years. I was able to get partial approval with the United States Coast Guard for this to be used on ships that do not carry passengers. The first time an approval like that has been given in the past 100 years. I had to argue that. And that took a long time to do it. But anyway, this is the device. So basically it throws like a frisbee. It has a central core where the rope is anchored. And the rope can pivot in there. I pull out about so much worth of rope, and I throw it like a frisbee. There is an aerodynamic edge on here. Okay? And I thought, yeah, it's an aerodynamic edge. Yeah, right, okay, sure, whatever you think. You know, whatever you think it is, it's fine. I wrote it in the patent, whatever, because I had never actually seen this work when I was talking to my client. He says it has an aerodynamic edge. Okay, sure, whatever. Because I don't know what an aerodynamic edge means, okay? Until you throw this. And I've thrown it. And it doesn't matter how bad you are at throwing a frisbee, this thing will wobble, and then it goes like this. And it just keeps going like this, and doesn't stop until it runs out of line. I've never seen anything like it, and apparently that has to do with partly with the edge. The other thing is, when I throw this, it flies. In other words, it actually maintains its altitude as it's going. It's like a ring buoy where you throw it and it just goes, as soon as it can hit the water, it's getting there. So let me show you what this is able to do. There's no sound with this one, but this is 100 feet. This depends on how much cord you give it, but look at that.
Sweet.
See how solid that sits? It sits in the air like this. Now, I don't know how that does that. I can't tell you that. Ben Doherty is the one who developed the aerodynamic edge. He's brilliant. His father's a patent attorney. I don't know, but it does it. It hits solid and it stays like this. As soon as it reaches this point, it stays there, and then it just goes like this. Continues. So, what are the benefits of this device? First of all, it's made of foam. It's flexible. It doesn't hurt. So if you get hit with it, no big deal. I can get about 100 feet with this, and when I'm trying to save somebody, let's say in the water off the ocean, when I throw this, what I want to do is not throw it at the person, but just throw it past them, or just to one side and past them. Because then all I do is I pull the cord, it flips over, and goes right to the person. Then what they do is they take it, flat edge, like this, they hold it, and this skims them across the water as they pull them back. It's amazing. It's an amazing device. And this has the full flotation, pretty much, of the standard ring buoy used in Europe. It's about 16.5 pounds buoyancy on this. So a guy like me, this is perfect. Even for a guy about 200 pounds, this is perfect. So let me show you what it does. This is a friend of ours' son. That was the guy throwing it is actually Paul Driscoll, who just passed away. But you just throw it past the guy, pulls it in real fast, flips over. Kid grabs it, pulls it to his chest, and just goes right down. Why is this important? Because with the ring buoy, what they decided was after they hooked up a line to the ring buoy and they chucked it out there and the guy grabbed it and they started pulling, the ring buoy dives. So you had to stop, let the guy come up from water, pull him again, and he dove down again, and then you had to wait and then pull him again. This skims across the water. Always keeps your head out of the water. Really exciting device. What are the component parts? Component parts is the foam. This is one piece, not two pieces, just one piece. It's got a base plate. Base plate pretty much anchors the rope. So you can see the rope is sitting in there on that base plate. Okay? It's got a central spindle. The spindle holds the knot of the cord, or I'm not sure how they've got it in there. But anyway, it spins on that. The other thing it has in here too, which you can't see, oh you can, I can see it, but you can't see it very well. There's actually a balance ring right in here. That discoloration, that dark area, that's actually a balance ring. And Ben decided that even though he had a fantastic aerodynamic edge, that if we had some weight in there too, that would also help it sit when it goes flying. It goes boom and stops, like keeps going like that. So that's pretty much it. It's got the spindle piece going through, it's got the rope, it's got this foam core piece that's very flexible, really nice, and the base plate. That's pretty much it. So that's our device. Like I said before, this is our little 2004 Connect Device of the Year award.
Being sold now, I'm sorry, did you say?
Pardon?
Being sold now, or?
Well, we had hoped it would be sold now, but unfortunately we all ran out of money. And so, no, it's not being sold right now. And the problem with it is for us to be able to sell it through maritime stores, the standard ones, it needs to be approved by the U.S. Coast Guard. And while the U.S. Coast Guard buys these from us and uses them, they will not approve it.
I have an idea why they might not.
Why is that?
A lot of, you see the buoys out there, how always you have a hole in the center.
Uh-huh.
The reason there's a hole in the center is when someone's drowning or they're incapacitated, it's easier to put their arms through the hole and kind of hold on to it. Where this one, you have to not be so severely injured to have enough strength to hold it to your body. A lot of people who are drowning or injured, you can't put your hand through anything.
Well, that's true. But they have also found that hole really doesn't help much, because what they found people were doing, they're sticking their foot through it like this, And then what they do is they find them up in the air with their foot sticking up and their face down, and they're dead. So it's really kind of a trade-off on how that happens. But I will tell you why the U.S. Coast Guard, what we think happens with the U.S. Coast Guard, because we've seen it happen twice now. The person who is in charge of giving us the allowance and the authorization to sell this is an officer in the U.S. Coast Guard with high ranking. And the U.S. Coast Guard is often headhunted by the people who sell the ring buoy. So it just so happens that out of the 2 captains that we were working with this device, trying to get it through for the past 10 years, they happen to be out of the U.S. Coast Guard now, and guess where they work? They work at the ring buoy producers. Okay, so I'm not suggesting that they may have known this in advance, but this really is disruptive to the ring buoy and would pretty much blow it out of the water if this came up, because every boat would want to have one of these. Unfortunately, we just can't sell it at this point because of the U.S. Coast Guard approval requirement. Okay, so let's get to our provisional.
This is the dog in the front? What's the picture of the dog?
That's the retriever. This is called the personal retriever, so that I think that used. Yeah, I think that was Paul's dog. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But. All right, so let's go through this.
Can you pull that left-handed or wind it for left-handed people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can do both. Yeah, you can do both, and it depends on. You can actually have a left-handed or right-handed one both there at the same time. These, by the way, are relatively inexpensive. I think it's about $150. Ring buoys cost like 80 or 90. I don't know why. I know, because they've got to hire the captain who's coming from the U.S. Coast Guard. So anyway, let's start with these requirements. The first thing we have to have is we have to have a title. Okay, go in your books and go to. You know what? Let's do something first. Let's talk about the prior art. Go in your books to the prior art section, which is number 4. And let's talk about what's out there before we start crafting this application, because it's important for us to know how we're going to craft around what's already out there to be successful. If we don't know what's already out there to craft around, we can still prepare a patent application, but our success rate may be a little less because we're not sure what the examiner is going to give us. In this case, we knew exactly what the examiner was going to give us. If you look, does everybody have patent 5562512 through Somalian, I think it is? Yeah. Do you see this one? Everybody got it? Okay. So, take a look at this device. It has flotation capability, it has rope, and it flies. How is this different from our device? Anybody? Take a quick look at it.
Is this 5562512?
Correct. Take a look at now the pictures. I would look at, I don't know what figure 1 that is, figure 3 and 4. 4 and 5. I take a look at figure 4 and 5.
Not very aerodynamic.
Okay, has the hole, like the ring buoy, so you can stick your arm in it, or if you don't want to live too long, you put your foot in it, okay? It has flotation device, that's that cross hashing up here, shows that this kind of has a buoyancy element to it. Has rope. So, how is this different from ours? Come on, people, tell me. This is your workshop.
Aerodynamic,
Okay, there's no aerodynamic edge. Why?
because they have all the cables that come and so forth.
Exactly, because any type of aerodynamics that are going to happen is going to happen all through here. There's nothing aerodynamic about that. All the air is going to get captured in there. It's going to cause this to fly a little less desirable than would hope. What else?
Doesn't have a weight on the bottom.
It's easier to
Its buoyancy wouldn't be exactly as good as yours.
Good point. Good point. For this to have that buoyancy, it'd have to be about, I don't know, about so big. At least be that big, okay? What else?
It weighs a lot more than yours too.
It likely will weigh a lot more. Why? Because this is likely hard plastic. It's probably not foam. And you can tell by looking at this diagram that it's showing it having this material that looks like foam inside something. That means the outside is not foam. So it's likely a hard casing. What else?
Also looks like it has sharp edges.
It has sharp edges, and we're going to get to that one because the next one's even better. Okay, so we've got a buoyant device, but maybe not enough buoyant. It's got a hole in the middle of it, which removes the buoyancy to some degree, and relies on the ring itself to have the buoyancy of a solid disc, and it's certainly not going to have that. It doesn't have an aerodynamic edge. It's not going to fly well because the rope is held in the middle of the edge. Okay? All right, so now let's take a look. Those are some observations. Let's take a look at 5895299. This was the one we were really competing against in the market because it was being sold out there. Take a look at figure 1 through 4. I don't have the pages numbered. It's patent application 5895299. It's right after the one we were just looking at. Okay. How is this different from ours? This one's solid. This one's a disc just like this. It's actually not quite that big. It's a little bit smaller. So what's different about this?
It's got a protruding piece underneath.
It's got a protruding piece underneath. I'm not sure what that's for. Actually, I am. Can you understand why that's there?
At the school?
Nope. Nope. There you are. Who said buoyancy? That's it. The reason is because figure 1 didn't have enough buoyancy. Because what they're relying on is this case is like a bubble. So, oh, by the way, if you accidentally puncture that, you're screwed. Okay? Because this fills with water. You puncture this, nothing happens. But you puncture this, this is a cavity of air. Okay? So, I don't believe figure 1 had enough buoyancy, so that's why they expanded it. Okay? So what else does it have?
It's got foam in figure 4.
It's got what?
Is that foam in figure 4?
I don't think so. That's the rope.
So that's the rope?
That's the rope.
7?
Yeah, that's rope.
That's sharp edges.
There you go. What about aerodynamics? Do you see aerodynamics here? The rope's on the edge again. Who's not understanding aerodynamics on flight? Right? Does your Frisbee have a big hole in the end? No, of course not. It has a solid end. Why? Because that's how a Frisbee flies. All right. So, this actually was in use for a little bit of time before we got this. You know what this was called? What its nickname was? It was called the Scalper. Because a couple people got hit with it. And that edge that was right here hit them right here and just made a big cut. So this was a dangerous device to use because it just was made of the wrong material. It's not a bad idea. It's a great idea. This is just the next generation and it's a little bit better. All right. So what disadvantage do we learn from this one? One disadvantage is that if you're out in the water and you have a flotation device, I don't want to rely on the balloon design. I'd rather have foam. Because if I puncture the balloon, I'm done. If I puncture my foam, I'm good to go. It doesn't matter. Okay, so that's certainly one thing about the 299 design I didn't like. And really, I don't think it was considered well enough. Correspondingly, even though it was called the Scalper, you're really not supposed to throw the device at the person. You're either supposed to throw it to one side or beyond them. It just so happened when you get a little excited and you're a good Frisbee thrower and you're out there thinking you're playing Frisbee golf and you want to hit that post, you got that head because it's nice and wide, okay? And I think that happens. And I don't think it's intentional, but it just happened to be that way. All right. So, now let's take a look at our device. It's the next couple pages at the end of this patent. This is the rescue disc. This is the next generation. This is not the final thing. We actually have some other stuff coming down the pipe for the future if we ever get funding. But right now, this solved a lot of problems that we had with the ring buoy and the prior art. As a matter of fact, it was so successful, I actually got this patent issued in 9 months. I don't know any patent attorneys who have gotten a patent issued in 9 months. So that was very lucky. Usually when that happens, you go, oh my God, I did something wrong. My claims obviously must have been too narrow, because how could it have gotten allowed so quickly? Well, soon as I looked at them, I realized they weren't narrow. We just happened to have a good idea of what the prior art was, which allowed us to craft the patent application well enough to get around those problems. So here I kind of laid out what the elements are here for you guys so you can understand what they are. We've got the hollow tube, and that's a separate piece. The hollow tube is a separate piece. It has a particular function. I'm not going to tell you all the specifics. These are some of the things I want you to think about. The buoyant disc has certain elements. Certainly one of them is the fact that it's buoyant. Okay, but there are other things about this disc that are unique, that you need to understand when I get you to the point where you're going to start doing some work, that when you describe this buoyant disc, it's not just the fact that it's a buoyant disc. There's other elements to it. The base plate has a function. It has a function, and it does a particular thing. All right? You need to know that, and you're going to need to describe that. The rope. Wow. Well, you know what? You would think that rope would be easy, right? Just, hey, we're going to put a rope on it. Oh, no. What kind of rope? Is it susceptible to UV? It's going to be on the outside of the boat, sitting on deck. It's going to be able to withstand the weather, aka temperature. The guy that invented this comes from Yorktown and used to run a lighthouse out there. And when it's wintertime, this stuff freezes. He says it's not unexpected to have somebody go overboard, grab your ring buoy and go like this. Because it doesn't come off the side because it's frozen on. Okay? So the rope is susceptible to a lot of things. If I'm expecting to grab this and start throwing, if this isn't dry and it's been wet and it's got frozen and all that kind of stuff, you got issues. So the other thing too is, if you want it to do 200 feet, you either got to make this cavity bigger or you got to have a narrower line. All these things you need to consider when I get you starting to work on this. Okay?